What's your take on social media, Tash?
It's a very scary place. I handle everything really well now. I've got a good system, but I'm not going to give that system away. But I will say that I do think that it is incredibly unnatural for people to be connected on the platform that we're at the moment. So I said this in another interview, but I'll use the Kardashians as an example. Mate, they must be built of steel. They must be seriously built of steel to be able to stand up in front of the world the way that they do, because you're looking at somebody like that who's got like 150 million followers on Instagram, or 100, upwards of that. That's just insane. That's more people that follow a particular person than countries have in their entirety.
How you doing? Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Locked down in Colombia, South America. How about you guys?
We're all good here.
All right. I'm glad to hear that. I wonder how I wonder how you pulled it off.
I don't know, but all I care about is that the sun's out, the weather's been good, the surf's been good. I've been feeling good and making tunes and fucking can't complain.
Do you surf?
I do surf, yes.
Since when?
Forever.
Really?
Yeah.
What's it like? I've always wanted to do that, but, I guess, I'm too old for it already.
I reckon that's the biggest load of shit that I've ever heard. What a silly thing. Bro, get a board and have a fucking go, man.
But you got the beach, so, and you got the sea close by, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I've been listening to the new songs. I think they're wonderful. I want you to take me through the process of this new album and what it was like for you. But before we get into that, I want to ask you about what it was like to get back on a stage on November 28th.
Well, you know what? It was really nice. I needed it. I think it just it was great, but it reaffirmed that we're not quite there yet to go back to, well, we never will go back to how we were. It will always be forever different from this point forward. I think it's going to take quite a long time for people to come back to shows. And, I think once we get over this hurdle, last year was the wound. This year, I think, is the Band-Aid. And I think next year might be where we really see life come back properly. Because in Australia right now, we're doing really good. But as we've seen compared to other countries, it can all turn to shit really, really, really quickly. And it's just about seizing the moment and seizing the opportunity. And that's what we did doing that show on the 28th of November last year. And I practiced my heart out every fucking day for months to just get back into the swing of it because I hadn't played a show for so long. And then I lost my voice.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So you lost your, and what happened then?
I gave every little bit that I could. When I walked off that stage, I was just talking like this for 2 weeks afterwards, actually.
Did you go to a doctor?
I got laryngitis is actually what happened. Yeah. So fuck 2020, hey? Fuck 2020. What the fuck?
I saw your post on Instagram with the little puppy saying, 2021 sent vibes. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if you've got a puppy or ever had a puppy.
I got a dog. I got a dog. I've had him for a year and a half now. He actually arrived just a couple, 5 months before the pandemic. And, he's a blessing, man. He's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, we're in puppy mode at the moment. So just like the constant nibbling. But we got 2 dogs, and Chili is the little one, and she's pretty good because she just copies Marley, which is the bigger one, and they're just like the two best friends you'll ever see.
What do you think is going to change forever? You mentioned that we're never going to be the same. What do you think is going to change?
We're never going to be the same. I think people have come outside of this consuming a lot less because you can't have things in abundance and do things in abundance the way that you could in the past. I think people hold their family either closer or further away. I feel like this time really shows who actually is even really in your life. Not just the people that you think are in your life or the people that you see when you go out or the people that you have to see because of whatever reasons. But, yeah, I mean, what I've really learnt this year is that I love to keep the circle really, really small because I do not trust barely anybody, and I only show 10% of myself to the world. So, people know or think they know me or me as the artist, but you don't know anything. And that's exactly the point of artistry, is mystique. Don't give it all away. We're all multi-dimensional. We're all multi-personalities and all that type of thing. And what it's shown me this year is just to be slow. And yeah, I never knew how to do that. I was just this wild, crazy motherfucker.
Is that the reason why you prefer to do everything in your music?
I think it's funny because people kind of think that I'm just this like airy fairy, go with the flow, smelly hippie kind of person, but I'm really not. I'm pretty much the opposite of that. Like, I'm really, really organized and like bit OCD with things. Like, I got to know exactly what's going on. I've always got a plan A, B, C, D. I've got a plan all the way down to the worst case scenario. And I just like to always be prepared in every situation because, shit happens. But what I had to learn, because I am that type of person that is like always on a schedule and really, really organized, and I had to be fluid with things because we can't what we've seen that has happened recently, you can't control it. So I took my hands off the steering wheel and just let things happen, and then just adapted around that. And I think I really, really needed to learn that lesson. I'm feeling much more relaxed, just mentally, physically, spiritually, like eating better, sleeping better, thinking better, speaking better. And I feel patient and calm, and I feel like I'm really absorbing life in a different way because, I mean, we're going through this experience right now that affects everybody in a different way, but the way that I took it on board was rise above or be defeated. So I just decided to get really, really creative and just move on, grow up, get real.
How does this process fit into the entire narrative of Terra Firme?
Well, the Terra Firme is like my world, and Terra Firme means the ground, so like the physical ground layer, the earth where you put your feet. And Terra Firme is the story and projection of my world recently. So the 3 snakes on the front of the record represent past, present, and future. And it's just about being grounded within the universe that you've created. So it was just the story of how I got to 25, really, is what the record's about.
When did you start recording it?
I started recording it in October 2019, and I walked out of my studio, which is where I am right now, actually. I walked out of my studio on the 20th of August, 2020. All the tracking was done, and then it took 2 months to mix and master it. So pretty much by the middle of October the album's been finished for that long. And because the album's been finished for all of these months before it even drops, I've pretty much written half of the next one. So, yeah.
Why didn't you decide to put it out?
absolutely not the right timing to put out an album and do a tour that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't the right time. We needed this big run up to get all of our things in order, because you got to do promo, you got to do like so many different things that go behind the release of a record to get everyone hyped and aware and all that type of thing. And it was good, actually. I think, you know, this is exactly how I would want to release music forever. Really just having all of that attention to detail and patience.
That's also going to change, right?
Yeah, what do you mean?
In the sense that I believe that records will not be released in the same way that they were a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. You know, like we were seeing the evolution into streaming and things like that, you know, and you yourself as an artist who has grown up surrounded by the web and embedded in the web in many ways.
I mean, I didn't really grow up surrounded by the web. I feel like the web was something for me that was like high school. That's kind of where, that was the first time that we ever had internet. And if you think about just like the last 5 years, it's just gone nuts. Like, data is so cheap now, so it's like everyone just has like 60 or 80 gig or 100 gig or 250 gig of just roaming. So you just be on your phone. Whereas back in the day, you make a phone call from your landline to someone's mobile, and it's just like hundreds of dollars for a small little conversation, which I paid many of those fucking bills off back in the day.
Tell me about the choosing the songs that come first. You know, I was talking to a friend about the few songs that have come out, and what was the process of picking those songs and putting them out there?
I write specifically in different, in like, I kind of compartmentalize the project before I even do it. So before I write an album, I'll write down all of the things that I'm feeling that I want to like take note on, all the things that I'm hearing, sounds that I love. So I'll write down things like cinematic strings or world instruments, or just, you know, hip hop grooves or whatever. I'll just write down kind of like a brainstorm of everything that I am really hearing and feeling. And they kind of marry up into songs at the end of the day. But I leave no waste when I write a record. So I only write the amount of songs that will be on the record. And I rewrite them until I think that they're finished. So there's quite a few on the record that really challenged me to finish. And I almost didn't release them, but because I don't like to leave any waste behind, I made it work. And it just clicked in, and it worked in the end after trial and error and changing the chords and changing the tempo and changing the time signature, changing the verse, changing the chorus, changing this, blah, 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 that, whatever. But that's kind of how I do it.
Which ones gave you the hardest work?
Beyond the Pine was the hardest one to write, for sure. It's very simple, but it was hard to keep it. For me, it was hard to get it to go from a verse and a chorus, flipping it into something else, and then bringing it back to the way that it was again. So that took me seriously. On this computer, there's so many versions of that song.
What about Pretty Lady? Tell me more about that song.
Oh, that's an old one, that one. That was easy. That was like 1 hour, all came together, and then that's that. I just used to busk that song back in the day. Just play the chords and freestyle at people on the street.
Listen, you mentioned the importance and the concept behind the artwork, the cover, and I want to ask you if there is a concept behind the entire album, given what you just said, you know, that you're so meticulous and so disciplined in putting those songs out there and making sure that they're almost perfect according to what you were feeling. Is there a concept?
The concept behind the record, as I said before, is terra firme, meaning ground, coming home, putting your feet back on the ground, putting your head back on the shoulders, acknowledging the past and the present as things that you can't change, things that you are, and things that you may be. And among that, we released 5 singles off the record before the record is to drop, and they represent a different element. So Pretty Lady represents water, and beyond that, that's about movement. So like moving and being fluid and moving into the new. And then Greed is about the earth, where you belong, and the things that disrupt you, kind of where you belong. And for me, that is what greed represents. It's just overconsumption. Beyond the Pine represents air, and that's like new beginnings, creativity. Willow Tree represents fire, that is transformation. And the last single that I just released, Sweet and Dandy, is about the spirit and karma. Like, you do good, you get good. You do bad, you get bad. If you think of yourself badly, then you become badly. If you think of yourself great, then you become great. And that's kind of what it means, and it all marries up into the cover, into coming home to Terra Firme, which is the universe that I created. And then the rest of the record is just the stories of how I got there at 25.
Is there a particular instrument that obsessed you in the making of this album?
Horns. I played heaps of horns on this record. And actually I played a lot of drums on this record, which I hadn't done too much of before. But just heaps of drums.
Who else helps you in the making of these albums? Because everything I see, you do. And it's like... Wow.
Yes, I mean, I do everything, because that's what the aim is, to do as much as possible. But I've also been mentored to be able to do that type of thing as well. So in my studio, which we're here right now, this is Lonely Land Studio, I use a guy who's been a fantastic friend to me for the last few years. His name is Richard Stolz, and he's an engineer. And he will sit in the hot seat right here while I'm out in the control room doing the takes. So he takes the burden of me having to set up things off my shoulders so I can keep creative. So before I do a session, I'll say, I'm feeling like I'm going to do drums today, and I'm probably going to do synths today or keys today. And he'll make sure that is all set up and firing and sounding good, so that we're not spending time creating or searching for EQ and effects chains, because they're already dialed in, because we've done this so much that we already know my vocal chain. We already know my drum, bass and parallel mix and all of that type of thing. We already know how that all goes in here because we've spent so much time. So we've just got this really good workflow where he captures what I do, and it's really helpful.
You mentioned hip hop a while ago. Was hip hop involved? Did you have any hip hop?
I fucking love hip hop, funk, hip hop, soul. I love folk. I love rock and roll. I love psychedelic rock. I love literally everything. World instruments, classical music, jazz, all of it, everything.
When you bump into or stumble into an instrument that you don't know how to play, how do you approach that new challenge? Has it happened to you lately?
I always really wanted to learn how to play the violin, which is just like, if you pick it up and start playing it, it's awful if you don't know how to play. Like, that's something that you need time for. But I think you can physically go get lessons from people. That's always really good. But a really cool thing about the day and age that we live in right now is the internet. You want to learn something, just start learning how to play scales, start learning like technique, begin from there. It's not hard to play an instrument. It's just about consistency. Like, seriously, everyone plays an instrument. It's amazing when you hear about somebody who doesn't play an instrument. It's just like, what do you mean? What? That's like breathing to me, you know, just playing, because I've always wanted to play. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing special about, I say this literally all the time, there's nothing special about what I'm doing. It's just that this is what I'm passionate about. So this is where my driving force comes from, is just trying to be not better than anyone else, just better than what I am. So, like, you know, better than a nicer person than I was yesterday, or a better guitarist than I was yesterday, or a better singer than I was yesterday. It's just about self-improvement. And I think that is it took me a long time to draw that focus inwards, because you can never lose if you're not competing. Like, you always win if you never give up. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, I just want to, like, I set challenges for myself because I need to complete them. I always have goals, and I always complete those goals.
Isn't that being competitive with yourself?
It's just about the driving force of, like, knowing that you can achieve what you put your mind to. I wouldn't really say, I don't think about it in a competitive nature. I think about it as just like self-evolution. Like, if you observe the fact that somebody else can play the guitar like that, if you put your heart and your soul into practicing, you're going to be able to do it as well. Like, we're all blank, I think we're all blank canvases when we're born. And my parents were very, very supportive of what I wanted to do, which was play music. And, like, they just let me do it. And I just kept it up for 20 plus years and all that type of thing. And, like, encouragement's a big thing. And if you're not getting that encouragement from your friends or your family, you got to encourage yourself a lot.
How do you see spirituality, Tash? How do you conceive it? How do you perceive it?
It's personal. I suppose I believe in a consciousness, you know. I believe that there's a purpose, and I just feel like I'm just on my journey, and that's spiritual as it is. So it's not for me, it's not like having faith or believing in a such God or whatever. It's just, I'm having this journey. Like, I didn't ask to be born. I was just born and given life, and I'm just trying to fill that in with things that make me feel really good.
How did you feel being on the cover of Rolling Stone for March? What's that like?
I had to sit down. I was actually having a walk through the botanical gardens in the city in Melbourne, and then my manager was calling me, and I thought, oh my God, someone's died, because he was just calling so much. And anyway, I was just like, oh my God, what's happened? And then he was just like, dude, they dropped the cover. So obviously I'd done a photo shoot for it, but they don't tell you when it's going to happen. They don't tell you anything. So it just happened. And then I was just like, oh my God, it was just a bit overwhelming. Usually if something big like that happens, like if I do like a TV appearance, or like on a cover of something, or if I release a song, I go missing. You will not find me. You will not see me. I will not pick up my phone. I just have to, like, go and take a minute alone, because it's really, like, it's overwhelming.
Does it affect the way the promotion moves along for you personally? Does it, like, say, for example, you say, okay, I did Rolling Stone. I mean, I don't need anything else. Why?
I think pretty much any artist wants to get the cover of Rolling Stone. And I'm really actually beyond thankful about the fact that it ended up happening in my career, because I didn't think that would be something that happened. Most of what I've done is just all a bonus now because I just didn't expect to go that far with anything. I just wanted to jam and I just wanted to be better than I was the day before, the week before, the month before. That's what it's about. And all this stuff that's happening around me is just a bonus. Like if I touch wood, but if I died tomorrow, I would have fulfilled beyond what I plan to fulfill in my life. So the cover of Rolling Stone, like I didn't even tell my parents about it. And then they just saw it and they were just like, what the fuck? When the fuck were you going to tell us that that was a thing? And I had a guitar come out not long ago and I just forgot. I honestly just forgot to tell him because we just don't talk about that. Like when I get together with my friends and family, we just get together as friends and family. Like it's just great. So all this other stuff that happens around, in my musical career, like I'm really happy about it, but you got to just put it to bed, I don't like to live that at every single moment of the day.
Does it scare you?
It's just a lot. It doesn't scare me. It's just a lot, It's a lot. If you're getting on the cover of a magazine, it's a fucking lot. I mean, I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but that's how I feel. Like I was saying to you before, if I release something, I'll just like go fully hermit and you just won't see me. Like I'll just go. I'll either be at home, like programming some shit on my guitar board or whatever, and then, or I'll go have a surf or I'll go have a walk or something. I just need to like get the world away.
What about having and getting your own guitar? What's that like?
It's really cool. So yesterday I went into my childhood music store that I've been going to since I was like 7 years old. And they just stocked the guitar in there. And it was really cool actually, because I used to go in there as a little kid and I'd be looking at all the guitars hanging up on the wall and I would think, man, it'd be so cool just to have one. Like when you're a young kid and you're looking at guitars, it's just like, whoa. And then you fast forward 20 years later and then they had my guitar on the wall. And I just thought that was really cool.
Do you get involved in the making of that guitar? Do they tell you the specifications?
Oh yeah, I designed the guitar. So I designed it off an American Pro Series because I had one of those Stratocasters and I thought it was really versatile. And I wanted to put something on the market that is custom. So that's a custom spec to me. Like I custom spec'd that guitar, but it is available for everyone to buy at a reasonable price because I think that guitars are really expensive, especially if you don't have the money. And there's like a really big jump in the market between like an average guitar and a good guitar. Like there's not really like a middle point for guitars. It's either like, kind of cheap and crappy or like you got to spend the money to get like something good. And I just didn't want to have something that was really good and that was expensive because I want people to be able to have a part of me like for an affordable price so that they can keep playing music.
I spoke to Bruce Springsteen about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, and he said something beautiful about guitars during the course of the interview. He said something about how a guitar that had been given to him by a fan outside of his Broadway play had become the starting point of the new album. And at the
that's wonderful.
And at the very end of the interview, he said, guitars are living things, and he added, they do hold songs within them. And I found that so inspiring in an era where so many people are saying that the rock and roll's dying, that guitars don't really matter anymore. So I find it very inspiring that you have your own guitar too.
I mean, I'm really happy with it because, like, obviously Fender approaching and saying like we want to do a signature series. And I was just like, what the fuck? Yes, for sure, man. We went through a couple of different types before we got to that one. It took actually ages for it to come together, but I'm really happy with it, with how it's turned out. It's my design, and it's just red and gold and like just loud. It's just really loud, and I like that. Says enough just as it is. But yeah, it's really cool.
What's your take on social media, Tash?
That's unnatural for the world to be able to come at you in that mass, like 150 million people coming at you in, like, that's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, like, back in the day, you just did your thing and that was it. And the people that knew what you were doing were the people that you called up on the phone, or the people that you frequented with a lot. And now everyone is just playing happy families and this and that, and you kind of bring yourself down because you think other people are just like winning at life and your life is shit, or you're not skinny enough, or you don't look good enough, or like you hate your face because somebody else is better looking than you, or, you know, it's just this whole thing that we shouldn't be seeing. It's unnatural. It's distracting us from being our truest form and existing through the time that we're given. We're wasting it scrolling. We're all guilty of it. We're wasting our time scrolling and looking through other people's lenses that are, quite frankly, however you want to design them. Filters on your face and like just this whole thing. It's just crazy. I'm scared for people. I am. I was actually talking to Eddie Vedder. I played at a festival that he runs called Ohana Fest, and he came into my dressing room after the show just to like say hey and whatnot. And he was actually telling me that, like, because obviously they were around before the age of the internet, that adapting to the times now is very difficult for a lot of these artists that have been around forever, because they're in a pre-social media era coming into the current day. And it's just a lot. It's really a lot.
Let's talk about collaborations. How do you pick collaborations? How do collaborations happen for you? I mean, yeah, I've got so many collabs on the go at the moment that I mean, they haven't come out yet, but it's just, I think it's just an acknowledgement that you like each other's vibe and you like what each other are putting out, whoever the people may be. Either I'll approach and just say, you know, let's jam, let's make a beat, send me something. Have you got a demo sitting around that you want to part ways with, that's not too sacred to you, that you think could be something shared? And or vice versa, people come to me and say, hey, we think it would be really cool if you produce the rest of our track. And it's just kind of, it's cool. It's just like, it's just what's happening. And in my world at the moment is the collab zone. Can I ask when the next album is coming out?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Probably won't be as long as a wait as this one. It's 3 years. It took 3 years for me to do my second album. Like, once it was finished and done and out into the world, 3 years from flow state. But it won't be that long.
Have you ever been seduced by the idea of moving to the US?
No, not at all, actually. I'm a real, how do I say this? I'm a real creature of habit. I'm really set up super well where I live. I live on a massive property with like heaps of land and no one around me, and it's just like this little fucking world, which is super cool. And I'm absolutely so open to spending stints of time overseas. But to live overseas, I'm not really keen on it. I want to spend time with my parents, and I want to spend time with my nana or my grandparents, because the ones that are still remaining. I don't want to go yet. I like what I'm doing, but I want to fucking leave the country, because God, I'll get an itchy feet.
Are there any plans for that in 2022?
2022, I think, is going to be more so where it will happen. 2021, I mean, you got to plan for the future. Otherwise, we're just going to be just doing this all the time, and that's really stressful because it's just like aimlessly existing. But man, as soon as they fucking open that shit up, I'm out.
And we look forward to having you in Bogota, Colombia, South America, because you got a lot of fans down here.
I can't wait to come.
It's been great talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I want to ask you one last thing because I work with the radio here with FM radio, and I would like to ask you if you could pick a song from Terra Firme that you wanted me to play for the next 3 or 4 months. Which one would you pick?
Oh, now I'm on the spot, dude. Mate, could you play Vanilla Honey?
All right. Will do. I'll play that.
Thank you very much for your time as well.
Take good care. It's been great.
I shall. Thank you.
Goodbye.